Hi, my name is Jeff McCormick. I'm the Director of Product Management for Ascom North Americas. I'm going to give you a quick overview on one of our Telligence 6 devices. This is called a bedside module. This can stand alone as shown here, or it can be paired with other devices. We have a host of devices that can be mounted in separate back boxes as shown here, or they can be stacked up within a single back box. The bedside module has 3 configurable buttons. This here, as configured, we've got a cancel, an assist, and staff emergency. These can be reprogrammed. There is a piece that comes out that can be printed on site, so you're not buying any custom products from Ascom. Also, we have dim lights on so that nurses can find those buttons in a dark room at night. And then when we do place a call, they will light up brighter, and you'll hear some phones ringing in the background as well. We can interface to any phones you may have within your facility. These buttons that I mentioned are a sealed membrane so that we can sanitize the station. This allows us to help with your infection control. Not only that it is a sealed surface, but then we can clean it. Also for cleaning, if you notice, you're going to see a flash on the cancel once, and when I let go, I have this programmed right now for a 15 seconds clean mode, so this allows us to sanitize the device without worrying about any false calls. So as your environmental services sanitizes the nurse call devices, we're not going to generate any false calls. Again, that impacts not only your infection control, but alarm fatigue if we're doing false calls. The socket here, which also has a gasket, we don't have to worry about any moisture during cleaning, accepts what we call our Safe Connect magnetic connector. You'll notice it took a second, that green light turned on. We read, I just plugged in a striker bed, for example, and that light came on indicating that that communication has been established, so nurses know that that is a successful plug-in. When we disconnect whatever's plugged in, we give staff up to 3 seconds to hit a cancel, indicating that was an intentional disconnect, so we're not sending out false cord out calls, again helping with your alarm fatigue. So another Telligence device is our patient station. As you saw on the bedside module, we have, again, sealed buttons. The difference here is you've got additional sockets, 1 additional button for staff. Again, these are all configurable behind a sealed membrane. We have the clean mode on this device as well. These 4 sockets can be configured for pillow speakers, plugging in beds, or also plugging in, say, medical devices, bed exit mats, chair mats, IV pumps, anything that can send a signal. And we will route those as a patient call device or a piece of equipment differently based on what's been plugged in. These sockets we can mix and match, so I've got a pillow speaker plugged in, I'm going to plug in a bed. If housekeeping were to come in or a nurse had to unplug these, again we have the intentional disconnect without cord out, but we can plug that device back in anywhere. This can be configured as a single or a dual patient room. If it's a dual, each pair of sockets would be tied to bed A, bed B, but it's configured as a single, we can mix and match, plug in anything, anywhere on that device. Again, we've got the sockets that are sealed buttons, all configurable, dim lights for staff to find the buttons at night, and then we will get the bright light when we do have a call. And again, we have phones going off in the background. We are integrated to Android devices here in our showroom. From a serviceability aspect, it's simple RJ connections for the system connections, and then we'll have some quick connects for your TV or light controls that we may be connecting to in the room. One of the unique things on Telligence is it does allow us to do addressing through dip switches or what we call a MAC address. This is similar to a computer where it has an address that it reports to the database. If you ever had to replace a device, you have the option of just setting the dip switches to match the device you've removed. And then it's plug and play. There's no need to go and do any programming. This does not impact any of the neighboring rooms while you're doing any of the service of the Telligence system in this given room. Another Telligence device you see here is a 3-button station, similar to the bedside module we showed you earlier. It's just missing that socket. So if you've got areas where you need some staff call buttons, but you don't need that socket input, this is another option. You'll also notice here we have 3 different call types. We do not have a cancel button. The use case here is this patient's going home and I want to have environmental services come and clean the room, and I need transport to come and get the patient. When transport shows up, they can clear their own event. That's the value of not having a cancel button, that each staff member can clear the request that they're responsible for. This is the Teleconnect station. This is a touchscreen device that goes in the patient room. This is going to be located typically at the doorway or in the footwall where it's easy for staff to get to. You may have seen devices referred to as a staff terminal in some of the other systems. Some of the differentiators here on the hardware first is this is a flat, again a sealed surface. You'll notice when I touched it, it came up for a login. The sealed surface, again, is going to allow us to sanitize. Just like the patient station, the bedside module we've shown, we can sanitize this. We can put this into a clean mode so that any touches will not activate any alarms or do any functions that we don't want it to do. We do have a login option. I'm going to log in right now. I've got 111 set as an RN. These logins currently are for role-based. So I log in as an RN or an aide or LPN, whatever levels of staff. And the reason we do that is when I log in, it gives me access to the events I need to see. So we're not going to show an aide any tasks or routines that are due for an RN to complete. Once logged into the device, you'll notice there's tabs down the side right here. I have 3 of them. There's room for multiple tabs here. The additional tabs are based on an HTML5 browser. So we're going to talk later about an application that Ascom has generated. But all these tabs or menus are accessible to staff, and up the top we're going to show you what you're in. So right now I'm in the nurse call menu. We're going to talk about our telephone functions, and then the next one is our tasks. Also up top we have the time of day and the location, so nurses see where they are. If they're calling another area, they can confirm where they are. By hitting that clock, we can go to time of day and toggle back and forth the dates and time of day. These nurse call buttons are all configurable. The colors, the text, what happens when you push the button is all an option. And then the speed dial menus. The first tab here is what we call favorites. So we can have up to 24, and you just quickly scroll if there's more than what's on the screen. This is placing calls out to where staff are calling on a regular basis. And this is not calling another Ascom device. This is calling any telephone in the world that the PBX gives us access to. So some examples may be if I'm calling in the lab on a regular basis, instead of having to go down to the nurse's station, I can make that call right here, spending more time with the patient and not wasting steps for staff. So you've got your 24 favorites. Then we also have lists where I can call to other rooms, or I can call out to nurse's station with a quick touch of the button here. And then the next thing we'll be talking about is TaskMinder. This is going to allow us to run routines such as nurse rounds, calling housekeeping, calling transport, and this is completely configurable. All these menus here, again, are configurable on site, and we will have our local partners and or our RNs come and work with your team to determine what workflows you want to improve using the Teleconnect station. So on the Teleconnect station right now, I am in the menu labeled Tasks. This is an application we call TaskMinder. I'm going to hit Create, and it's going to give me a list of tasks or routines. And again, these are customizable within your facility in a unit-by-unit basis. So your med-surg area can have completely different menus than your labor delivery or your ICU. The list is separated into 2. The first is tasks, and a task may be a one-time routine, call housekeeping, transport, or set a reminder for a one-time task for a nurse or a services area. Below that is what we call routines. A routine is something that you want to reoccur automatically. Examples that we have here is RN round, aide round, so we can allow you to have the RNs and aides do their rounding odd even hours with their own timers. And as they complete those tasks, we're going to start that clock automatically. I'm going to start an RN round here. So I select RN round, and again, all these menus, the texts are completely customizable. If you have any semi-private rooms, we can support both beds with a single device. So I'm going to select which bed I'm starting this round. We will now be able to say, do I want to start now or put a delay on it? Now you see I've created the task. It's going to show us when it's due. It's also showing us what level of staff. So as we talked earlier about the login, if I logged in as an aide, I wouldn't see this because this is not my task to complete. The time of day is important because if I am in attending to, say, a patient call and I see I'm going to have to come back shortly to complete that round, I'm going to save those steps and I'm going to complete that round now. So I just hit the check mark. It's asking me if I'm going to complete that, and I hit complete, and it's going to advance the time for that next round for me. I can select that. I also have an option for complete or deactivate on this menu. You see it's an RN round. We can put any notes in here. So for example, when my RNs do their round or the aides do their round, we can have a checklist as to what it is they need to complete while they're here. Also, we have an option for unable to complete. So if I were to come do this round and this patient may be off for some testing, I can hit unable to complete. It will bring up a menu that is again customizable on a unit by unit basis, and I can select patient not present. Now your reporting package will see that we did come to do that rounding on time, but we didn't complete it because the patient was not here. And it will start that timer over. I'm going to deactivate that. I'm going to go back to my task menu. Some other examples here is we've got patient turn. We also can set up a custom. So I just want to set a reminder. When I want to set a reminder, it's going to ask what level of staff do you want this reminder for. I'm going to say I want the aide to get this one. It's going to ask us when we want to start it and if we want a reoccurrence. If I do want a reoccurrence, what is the time frame between those reoccurrences? That is all customizable and the user select. So going back to our task menu, we're going to focus on rounding a little bit more. So I can set an RN round so I can have my RN, for example, on the even hours come in and check on this patient. And then I can set up a separate timer for the aide. Also, if you're doing hourly rounds during the day, but at night, we're going to do that round every 2 hours. Within the system, you can define when we want to switch from that day to that night mode. And at night, we'll automatically start sending out reminders every 2 hours instead of 1 hour. And then again, you set the time of day in the morning when you want us to switch from the 2 hours back to a 1 hour again. It's going to happen automatically in the background without having to come to the room and stop and start or make any changes to those timers that are running. And again, we will show the task to do, what staff level is due for that task. So if I had multiple running here, I have the option to let the RN see what they're responsible for and what the aide's responsible for. But when the aide logs in, the aide is only going to see the tasks that they're responsible for because they're unable to complete some of those RN tasks. Again, that's configurable how you want to hide or show those events to each of your staff levels. And the time of day is very important when that task is going to come due again. And we can hit that bar or that particular task, and we have additional information that is here. Again, we can have notes for the staff member. We're going to identify the location and the next due time on the screen, and all of these notes again are customizable, so we can have a paragraph of information here if we chose to do so. As we create these tasks and complete these tasks, this is all going to be logged into the reporting database. We also have the option, we'll talk a little later, of doing some of this on an Android-based device. So if I have a task due, I can modify that task on my mobile device if we want to give the caregivers that ability. The other advantage there is the staff are going to be able to see what tasks are due for all of their patients. So I don't need to go into my individual rooms. I will have on my mobile device all the tasks that are due for me and when they're due. So I can budget my time and it'll give me notifications when it's come time to do those tasks. The test that we've been going through, this is an application. It's not part of your embedded nurse call. And the value there is we can push that application out to mobile devices. This is Ascom device, but any Android device can have this functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a pain assessment task. And when I create that, it is going to be the RN that's responsible. And when I create the task, I'm saying I want it to be done in 5 minutes just for demo purposes. And you'll see immediately that staff member got notification that they have that pain assessment and when it's due. When that nurse comes and completes that, they can either complete it here, or I'm going to hit complete on my mobile device. It's asking me, am I sure I want to complete this now? And you'll notice immediately we'll clear that from the station in the room. If this were a routine and not a one-time task, it would start that timer over. And then when it came due again, it would send me a notification on the phone, also show it is due here, as well as the dome light outside the patient room and show when that task is due. So this is the staff console that will be at the nurse's station. You'll notice this tablet section is exactly what you saw on the Teleconnect. It is the same hardware for us. This happens to be a tabletop setup. We can also have a wall mount version of the staff console. I've got a patient call coming in right now. It shows you the type of call and the location. And I'm just going to take the handset off the hook switch here and answer that call. When we're talking to the patient, some of the unique things with Telligence is I've just depressed volume. I can adjust the amplification level of the patient's voice to me and the caregiver's voice back to that patient. That's on a bed-by-bed basis. I also have an upgrade priority. So if I've opened intercom to this room and I realize there's an emergency, This is a customizable list. I can say, you know what, this is a staff emergency, and hit upgrade, and that will create a staff emergency for that room if we're integrated to mobile devices and we've immediately sent that staff emergency out. The other menu we have here is create task. So I've talked to this patient. This patient would like a blanket. What level of staff do I want to take care of that? I'm going to say the aide, and when I hit create task, we're going to send that request for a blanket in this location to the aide's mobile device. The other benefit here is in our reports, we're not only going to see when the call was placed, but when it was answered, what was asked for, and then when the aide walks in with their RTLS badge or depresses cancel, that will clear that blanket request. Therefore, my management reports is going to show not only what did the patient ask for, but more importantly, when did they get what they asked for, because that's what they're going to base their HCAP scores on.